What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel. And after this weekend's 2025 NFL Scouting Combine that I had on the background and watched all weekend long, if a lot of you guys are draft sickos like me, you also were in the same boat. It is a perfect time to do a post-combine mock draft. We are not doing any trades. Last mock draft I did with trades, just for fun. Some fan bases acted like I did football terrorism, so I'm not going to entertain you with that right now. Every pick stays as is. And this is the biggest change-up that I've ever had in a mock draft so far. I think this would be my 6th mock draft overall on the channel, going back to like the summer, like way too early mock drafts. I think I have an almost 75% new top 10. Bunch of players going in the first round for the first time. So let's have a lot of fun. Let's get into it. I feel like I got my finger on the pulse of what these teams are going to do. Like, this borderline feels like almost a predictive mock draft, where I want to have this stand the test of time and stack up against what actually happens. Because at pick 1, I have the Tennessee Titans going Abdul Carter. Here's why I don't think they're going quarterback. One is I don't think it's a smokescreen in the fact that they are trying to trade out of pick 1. They want to get an absolute haul. They want somebody that's fallen in love with one of these quarterbacks potentially to come up and get him. If that's the case, and we know the Titans still clearly need a quarterback, they're not sold on Cam Ward. Number 2, they already came out and said, could be smokescreen, could not be, that they want a truly special player, like a generational type player. And I think if you're looking at this year's class, you got Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. I think those are probably the only two that might fit that bill. And in that push come to shove, less risk, higher floor, that's going to be Abdul Carter. Number 3 is Harold Landry's on the trade block. Productive pass rusher, but he's expensive. He's getting up there in age a little bit. That kind of tipped their hand just a little bit. If they're willing to move on from Harold Landry, why? Do they know they have something coming up through the pipeline that's going to be ready to take that spot over? Probably. So that is why I have Abdul Carter going 1-1. Pick 2 to the Cleveland Browns. I have them going Cam Ward. I think Brown fans need to accept the fact that you are headed towards likely a painful rebuild. Myles Garrett is going to be gone. Whether you trade him to the Bills, Commanders, Eagles, I think best case right now, you just start hoping that you finesse whatever team you trade for and you get them to overpay potentially. You get into a bidding war. You're not going to get them to overpay because your situation sucks. Myles Garrett is gone. But if you get these other teams start bidding against each other because he is arguably still the best defensive player in the NFL, that is going to be best case scenario for you. But if you're going towards a rebuild, you have a black hole of suck that is Deshaun Watson and his contract. The only possible way you can navigate that has to be along the lines of what the Denver Broncos did with Bo Nix. When they moved off from Russell Wilson, had absurd dead cap hit. You have to treat the same with Deshaun Watson. And how you do that is you bring in a competitive quarterback on a rookie contract. And the best quarterback, the best situation right now is Cam Ward, who I think, much like Shedeur Sanders, their first-round quarterbacks probably, I think Cam Ward would go first round. Like if you're going and rating every player based off of their value, you probably have Cam Ward in the teens, 20s. Shedeur might be in your top 25 to 45, somewhere in that range. But quarterbacks like that, like Bo Nix was not in the top 25 prospects overall last year. Went in the first round. Looks pretty damn good in hindsight. I feel like that's what you're looking at in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders this year. They're going to go high, and that's why we have Cam Ward there going to Cleveland. Next up, I'm going to have Shedeur Sanders go to the New York Giants. This is purely based off of feedback. I don't really necessarily want to say that me looking at the comments on my mock drafts is going to necessarily sway what direction I want to go, but pretty much every time I don't have the Giants going Shedeur Sanders, I've had them going Travis Hunter, my last couple mock drafts. I would hate that more as an Eagle fan. I would almost love the Giants as an Eagle fan getting Shedeur Sanders because there's so many question marks there. It almost feels like that's a foregone conclusion. Giant fans want a quarterback for the most part from what I'm gathering on social media and on my content when I talk about the draft. So here you go. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely a plausible scenario. They are desperate for a quarterback. If Brian Daboll thinks it can work, I'm not saying that this year he's coaching for his job, but I think this entire organization, the front office, the coach, they need to, hitch their wagon to somebody that can help them save their jobs and get some job security. Because right now, their general manager is an absolute meme from the Saquon Barkley on Hard Knocks. Their head coach in Brian Daboll looks like a fraudulent Coach of the Year award winner. Is Shedeur the guy that can save it? We will see. Very interesting what the Giants do at pick 3. We'll have them go Shedeur. Pick 4, I'm going to have the New England Patriots select Travis Hunter. Every mock draft I've done, I've had Travis Hunter as a corner first, wide receiver second. I think in this scenario, I feel like the Patriots would view him as a wide receiver. I really do. You could play a little bit of corner. It has to be almost the other way, though, you feel like. In the NFL, if you are going to have a two-way player, it almost feels like you have to have them as corner predominantly and then have special packages for them to come out at wide receiver. I just feel like Mike Vrabel's going to fall in love with Travis Hunter and be like, I can utilize that versatility. I don't know whatever reason has me thinking that they'd use him as a wide receiver first. Maybe that's because that's a bigger need to get Drake May, that wide receiver one. But that's like a... Here's why. Ultimately, I'm going to put a bow on this pick is Mike Vrabel is a Bill Belichick disciple. Okay? Kind of, sort of. Not officially a part of his coaching tree, but Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick. They're hand in hand. And if Bill Belichick was still the coach of the Patriots, Travis Hunter is like the all-time Bill Belichick pick. That's my justification at the end of the day. Plus, you might be a generational player. Haven't seen a prospect like that in ever. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to improve their defensive front. Get Mason Graham, the D-lineman out of Michigan. Didn't test Combine weekend, which was a little unfortunate, but Tate speaks for itself. Maybe he came in a little bit lighter. I think he was listed at 320, and he's going to be probably playing around 300 pounds. But I think for the Jacksonville Jaguars, just improving that defensive front, there's no wrong pick for Jacksonville at pick 5. It's absolute crapshoot. They can go multiple positions. So in my opinion, I'm just going to have them slightly go and follow my true talent board, and that is Mason Graham going at 5. The Vegas Raiders at number 6. I'm going to have Pete Carroll bring in a wide receiver in Tetairoa McMillan. 6'5", smooth like a Blade Runner. Dude, this guy is Drake London. That's the pro comp that's getting thrown around right now, but he's a guy right there. There's your wide receiver one in Vegas. You're going to have to figure out what you're doing at quarterback. They lost out on the Matt Stafford sweepstakes. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be in play. I don't know if Kirk Cousins. I don't know what they're going to do, but I feel like veteran quarterback is going to be the play for Vegas unless they want to be really aggressive and try to trade up for Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward in the draft, which I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, Brady could be crashing out that he missed out on Stafford. But I think regardless, best player available for the Vegas Raiders right now. Looking at the missing pieces on that team, who's their wide receiver one? You got Jakobi Meyers. That's a wide receiver two. All right, so you get someone like McMillan, you put him in place, you bring in a veteran quarterback, they have their wide receiver one. You eventually get your franchise quarterback, they have a guy that's a clear-cut wide receiver number one. And McMillan should be a wide receiver one immediately. So to build that and to put him there, and then you have Brock Bowers at tight end, you have Jakobi Meyers at wide receiver two, moving around the slot, that offense starts looking a lot more promising. Jets at pick number 7, I'm going to select Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. Now, short arms. We've been talking about short arms. However, if you're going to have short arms, you might as well, you got to compensate that by being a terrific athlete. And that is exactly what Will Campbell is. Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles because multiple reasons. But I think the biggest reason, Jets O-line, hot garbage. So I think finally showing some investment on that offensive line. You did it last year in a way by getting younger, right? You got Fashanu. Continue. You are not going anywhere without great offensive line play. And I think Will Campbell, not a super sexy pick. Jets heading towards a rebuild, but I think you solidify that offensive line. You got some young players there. Vera Tucker, Joe Tippmann, Campbell, Fashanu. Life gets a lot easier when you have that line. Life gets a lot easier when you have that line and you are not going to be a particularly strong team throwing the football. Who knows what the quarterback situation is? As far as I know, though, for the Jets to be competitive, you're going to have to feed Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, be a run-first team, get inspired by my Eagles, and to do so, you need to dominate the line of scrimmage. And I think a pick like this would help solidify that. Pick 8 for the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to have them go with a Raz King. He's going high. He's going top 10. Shemar Stewart. Now, Shemar Stewart's production, 2 sacks, but he had 33 pressures, which is very good. He's just generational athlete. You get a guy like this, and you figure it out. A 10 Raz, 6'5". He's probably going to be playing weight 275. 40-inch vert, elite explosion grade, elite speed. This is just what happens. It's Travon Walker. This is the Travon Walker pick. And it took a little bit for Walker to get it going, but now he looks like a double-digit sack guy for the Jags going forward. And at this spot, There's no, like, should we go the freak athlete in Walker over maybe a more proven producer like Aiden Hutchinson? Like, the dilemma that the Jags had to deal with it. You know, I think almost everyone would take Aiden Hutchinson over Travon Walker. But there was a debate there. There's no debate. You're at pick 8. You look at the remaining pass rushers. You have James Pierce Jr., Walter Nolen, Mike Green. Question marks, question marks, question marks. There's no clear-cut, oh, well, you can't go and trust the generational athlete because there's someone there that's a proven, for sure thing home run, like in Aiden Hutchinson. You don't have that scenario here, so I would love to see the Carolina Panthers just take a swing for a freak of nature pass rusher who tape looks a lot better than the stats. Just for whatever reason, like A&M, they have so many good players that didn't put up big-time numbers. I don't know if that's just the state of the defense there or what have you, but I think Stewart, with that combine, has solidified a top 10 selection. Why not Carolina? Pick number 9, we have the New Orleans Saints replacing Mr. Marshon Lattimore. They're going to get Will Johnson. Hype's kind of fallen off a little bit on Will Johnson, but for my money, special player. Not corner 1 consensus anymore. Like, it almost felt like for sure. You go Will Campbell, then you go, or Will Johnson, and then you go down to Travis Hunter. Maybe that gap's closed just a little bit, but for Johnson's case, if he's healthy, if he's motivated, he is a corner 1, island corner, outside corner, perimeter corner, and those guys do not grow on trees. And for the Saints, it's a nice little youth injection to their defensive secondary. Chicago at pick number 10. We are going to go with another big-time Raz player. Razzers, if you will. We have Membou, the tackle from Mizzou. 331 pounds. He ran a 4.9. Now, the question with him is, can he play guard or tackle? The question for the Bears is, do we need a guard or tackle? I feel like there's going to be some element and level of shuffling around on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears to find the best combination, because it was an absolute shit show last year trying to not only protect Caleb Williams, but create lanes for DeAndre Swift to do the things. They paid him a pretty penny to snipe him away from the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think for you, the Chicago Bears, a lot of room just to kind of go BPA on the offensive line and figure it out later. And when you get an absolute S-tier athlete in Membou, that makes that process of finding where you're best suited a lot more easier. $40.11, they just keep it rolling with Kelvin Banks, who I think gives you another versatile player. A little bit shorter, like Will Campbell. Like, this is a particularly short arm length tackle class, which, you know, historically speaking, a lot of those guys tend to kick inside, and if they kick it inside, you devalue them a little bit because you're not going to value a guard or an interior lineman the same way that you value a tackle. I think Banks will probably start out at tackle first. You look at things for the Niners, you could probably plug and play him at right tackle, have him eventually be the successor for Trent Williams at left tackle. Awesome player, put up some outstanding tape, and was a mauler for the Longhorns last year on their very successful season. Number 12, we have the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to have them select Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. Ran a 4.29. Coming off a year, they had just under 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. And someone made a comment. He is the first 4.2 wide receiver with great hands. He has ridiculous highlight reel catches. I think this would be something that make Jerry fall in love. It's something different. Everyone knows if you're doing mock drafts, Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys, you almost need to resist doing that. I really do think wide receiver is going to be a need. I think Jerry Jones is going to be like, all right, we got to salvage this Dak situation. Doesn't look great. We need more help than CeeDee Lamb. Who's the number 1 wide receiver that can help us right now? And I think you're going to look at some guys here like Burden, Gadget, slot player, Egbuka, slot player. How about the guy from your own state that went on that big playoff run? That was the go-to guy, gotta-have-it guy for the Longhorns, and then he shocked the world by running faster than Isaiah Bond down here, who's like, oh, I'm going to break the 4.1 or whatever, and he ended up running a 4.4. It was his teammate. That was some gangster shit for your teammate to just, not really say anything and then run the fastest 40-yard dash at the combine and have you look at the scouting report on Golden, it was all about, pretty crisp route runner, outstanding hands, can track the football well. Nothing was really bringing up that this guy had 4.29 speed, which is a pro and a con, right? Because track speed, playing in pad speed, different, which you got to kind of figure that out a little bit, how much you want to value and or devalue it. But I think Golden has absolutely shot his draft stock up. And I think after McMillan, there's a legitimate shot he is wide receiver 2 taken in this class. We have pick number 13, the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to have them select Malachi Starks. Now, Emanwari here put up a perfect 10 RAS. Like Emanwari, Membou, who we just had going to the Bears. Those are probably two, like, and Shemar Stewart are like, holy, these guys have absolutely earned some money this combine weekend. But for Emanwari, he's one of those guys, we got to see the agility testing because he looks a little stiff on tape. Pause. But where are you going to play him? Because you look at someone like Malachi Starks, this is a proven stud. And he tested fine. Didn't test off the charts like Emanwari. But I'll tell you what, when they did the on-field drills, he was head and shoulders above the rest of the safety group. You literally just saw like, oh, that's a 5-star talent. Oh, that's a guy that a year ago was considered a blue-chip player for this class. And when you look at the Miami Dolphins, safety is a little faux pas going this high in the draft. But when you get a guy like this that can wear a lot of hats on the defense, can line up at a lot of different spots in the secondary, and can be an absolute game changer for a team that looks like Javon Holland's going to be bouncing. I think that's nice business from Miami, even though you definitely can make the argument positional value, not a strength of getting a safety at pick 13. Pick 14, we have the Indianapolis guy. This is just, sorry, I'm doing it every time. Tyler Warren. If you're going to try your best to salvage Anthony Richardson, get a proven, established safety net for him to the offense. That is an element Bo Alley Cox can't offer that, you know? Warren, absolute stud, versatility. Yeah, I think always, as long as that's on the board, that is a outstanding pick that I'm probably almost always going to have the Colts take at number 14. Number 15, with the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm going to have them select another winner from the Combine, James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee at the Combine, 6'5", good broad jump. The vertical was surprising to say the least, but running a 4.47. This is a productive SEC pass rusher. 8 sacks, 43 pressures last year. Big-time playmaker for the Falcons, who are just continuing to kind of throw some resources to figure out their pass rush. And I think getting someone like James Pierce Jr., maybe not the best run defender right now, but you need sacks. You need someone that can just wreck a quarterback's day. And I think you can make an argument at that spot at 15. James Pierce does that a little bit more better than any other of the pass rushers. Now, there are off-field concerns, but there's also off-field. Mike Green's another one. Huge off-field concerns with Mike Green. I'm going to have him go in the first round here, but there's absolutely a scenario that likely will come to light before the actual draft that could shoot him way down draft boards. We will see. I don't want to throw dirt on the guy's name, but it sounds like multiple offenses of things that you cannot do as a good person and or wannabe future millionaire in the NFL. So I'll let Pierce go there right now, even though there also are some maturity concerns with James Pierce Jr. Number 16 for the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to have them select Walter Nolen, the former 5-star recruit out of Mississippi, formerly of A&M, I think is who paid him the most money coming out of high school. But for the Arizona Cardinals, this is an interior pass rusher. Put him on the other side of Darius Robinson. Big-time player. I think he's one of those guys that I get the vibe, because he didn't test this combine weekend, that like his stock's kind of, I don't want to say going down, but like you have other edge rushers that are going up from, Shemar Stewart's, etc., guys that tested really well at the combine. I'm in the side that Walter Nolen is going to be a very special player. I hope he falls with my Philadelphia Eagles. He's probably my dream fall for the Eagles right now. But with that being said, if he's a good scheme fit for the Eagles, he's also going to be a good scheme fit for the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of similarities. Obviously, Gannon being a Fangio-light type defensive coordinator. Nolen is a very special interior pass rusher. And that is a big position of need for the Arizona Cardinals. Pick 17 with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to have them select Mike Green, the pass rusher from Marshall. 17 sacks, 32 pressures last year. It's just the off-field. Now, a little bit light. Looks like a little bit smaller of an edge rusher. Don't think he's as freakishly athletic as, say, like a Nolan Smith for the Eagles, who also, that was the big concern. It was like, oh, well, he's really undersized. Is it going to translate? But you cannot deny 17 sacks, 32 pressures. That is what the Bengals need. They need someone, first of all, got to be defense. Their defense was shambolic last year. It was literally, can our offense outscore the opponent? That's the only way they had a chance of winning. So I look at that defense and be like, well, Sam Hubbard's not cutting it. Myles Murphy, what's going on there? Like, I just rebuilt the Bengals, so some of these names are a little bit more familiar to me. You have Trey Hendrickson, and that is it on your pass rush. So I think you look at Jalon Walker, maybe too much of a hybrid for the Bengals defense. Mykel Williams, that's, do you want to gamble on traits and upside like they did with Amarius Mims? If that's the case, and Mike Green's off the field issues, write him off the board. I think Mykel Williams at pick 17 here would also be a great alternative for the Bengals. Pick 18, we have the Seattle Seahawks. This is probably the only automatic pick that I don't know if I still love it as much, and it is Tyler Booker. He did not test particularly well, which hurts because, Gray Zabel tested well. Donovan Jackson looked pretty good. Jonah S. from Arizona, Ratledge, dominated at the combine. So when you have guys that don't test well, don't test particularly good at all, you want to feel lower on them. But also, Booker is a gigantic mauler at guard. Were we expecting him to run a 4.8? It's really one of those things where it's just, historically speaking, a player that had a low testing RAS as Booker doesn't go in the first round. But I think when you're as dominant of a run blocker as he is, when you have as big of a need to improve the interior as the Seattle Seahawks, I think you can look past it and trust the tape, and he has first-round tape. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick number 19, I'm going to have them select Jalon Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. Hybrid player, off-ball linebacker, edge rusher, that versatility. Todd Bowles licking his chops, the multiple ways that they're going to be able to get him involved on the defense as a rookie, different packages. Congrats, Tampa Bay. Great fit. Honestly, sick value getting him at 19. Number 20, we have the Denver Broncos. I have them going Ashton Jeanty, which I think is who I had them going in my last mock draft. You need a game changer, I think, on the offensive side of the ball that fits a Sean Payton offense. And Jeanty, in my opinion, is a more athletic Alvin Kamara. There's a lot of comps for Jeanty. I've seen LaDainian Tomlinson and all that stuff. Okay, that's Hall of Fame comps. It has to be a special player for me to want to give a Hall of Fame comp. But I think Jeanty has a little bit more juice, a little bit more pep in his step than Kamara. But Jeanty 2 years ago had 60-some catches, something like that. He was a true weapon. He could do everything. This year, he just straight up I'm going to run and try to challenge Barry Sanders' record. But a year before, he can line up in the slot. He can catch the ball in the backfield. And I think if you look at one of the best utility players that Sean Payton has had in his time, in his entire career, it was Alvin Kamara and the things he was able to do with New Orleans. I think you look at the backfield that they have right now in Denver, don't really have that guy. All due respect, I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams in particular. But someone like Jeanty completely unlocks that offense, not only as a runner, but as a receiver. 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to have them select Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Mizzou. A hybrid player, but I think a great complementary option to George Pickens. And whatever they end up doing at quarterback there, the more weapons that can make whatever that quarterback's, whoever it ends up being's life a little bit easier, I think that would be a great fit for Pittsburgh at 21. 22, we have the LA Chargers. I'm going to have them select Colston Loveland from Michigan. Now, a little bit of a question mark around Loveland. Is he going to test? How athletic is he? That's something you got to consider. Number 2 is how good is he really? Because everyone just assumes he's really good, but there's been such a limited passing offense for Michigan the last couple of years that's he hasn't been highlighted as much, hasn't been able to put up the big-time numbers that your Tyler Warrens or your Harold Fannons have been able to put up. I think who has the best knowledge on how good this player actually is, Harbaugh. I think from all accounts, Loveland is an S-tier route runner. You have a position of need here for the Chargers. It gives Justin Herbert an entirely new element to that passing offense, which last year they ran the football well, they played great defense, but you feel like maybe the passing offense for the Chargers last year left a little too much meat on the bone. And if that's the case, someone like Colston Loveland could be that missing piece, that missing chain mover with Ladd McConkey. You're starting to get a little bit more out of Quentin Johnson as a downfield threat. I think this could be something that just kind of completes the Chargers offense if they can go out in the other rounds and kind of finish up and shore up that offensive line. 23 to the Green Bay Packers. We're going to go with another combine winner. A little bit of a reach. I'm going to have Maxwell Hairston, outside corner from Kentucky. 6 interceptions over the last 2 years. Ran the fastest 40-yard dash. Speed is something going back to the Eric Stokes pick that it feels like the Green Bay Packers go, oh, fast corner, SEC corner, I'm in. And Hairston has better tape than what Eric Stokes did. 39.5 vertical. Maybe a little bit shorter. You'd love to see if he could, but he's almost 6, just under 6 feet tall. A little bit light, but I don't think you have, like, the concerns that, like, Emmanuel Forbes had. You know what I'm saying? Emmanuel Forbes just can't, I don't even know where he is right now. The Rams or something like that. But I think Hairston, I was a big fan of his game. He was definitely one of my sleepers from the cornerback spot just because you produce and you can lock down in the SEC, and didn't know he's going to be that fast, to be completely honest with you. You are going to make a lot of money in the NFL. And I think for the Green Bay Packers, all reports say that Jair Alexander is on the trade block. Well, if that's the case, you need some corner help. We're going to go Hairston. We're going to have a run on corners because at 24, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. Outstanding football play. He was a guy that was expected not to test particularly well. Ended up going with a 9 RAS. Would be interested to see what the agility testing comes up as, but he's an outstanding football player. In my opinion, he was the best player on the Texas defense. Every time I'd watch him, it was him and Makubo, who's the safety transfer from Clemson on Texas, who's in this year's draft as well. That was like, this guy's outstanding football player. An outstanding football player for the Minnesota Vikings. It'd be a great get. Maybe not prototypical outside size, but I think when you're looking at these corners, like, I mean, who really does? Ravel has question marks coming off injury. Morrison has question marks. Thomas, fine. Porter tested well. 6'2.5" with like 4.3 speed. He could sneak into the first round if you really want to gamble on traits. But traits versus clear-cut tape of being an elite college playmaker in the secondary, I think for that you go Barron at 24. 25, we have the Houston Texans. And I'm going to go with another combine winner on the interior. Offensive line, I'm going Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia. Now, Tate Ratledge has started pretty much the last 3 years. 37 starts, has only allowed 2 sacks in 3 years of SEC play. 6'6", 310, almost a perfect 10 athlete. The explosion, the speed, mauler, absolute mauler before you look at this. And then now it's just like, okay, he's just a generational athlete, pretty much. One of the best athlete guards we have ever seen at the Combine. No sacks, SEC player, Georgia Bulldogs O-line. In my opinion, I think, especially with, your guys like Tyler Booker, not testing the best. Which, testing versus Tate, it's always an interesting debate. You always trust the Tate for the most part. But when you have something like this, like, oh yeah, he's been awesome for Georgia. Holy shit, he's this athletic? Okay, up the board you go. And I feel like the biggest need for the Houston Texans right now is you have to figure out the offensive line. Before you can look at wide receiver, before you can look on the defense, protecting C.J. Stroud. Just so many times their game plan would get wrecked because they could not protect. They could not, I'm actually surprised Joe Mixon has as many yards as he ended up having for how bad that offensive line was last year. So I think unsexy pick, but at 25, you go best lineman available. And I think after that combine, Ratledge is going to be shooting up boards. Number 26, we have the LA Rams. Now, this one is cause and effect. You have Cooper Kupp on the way out on the trade blocks. They're going to bring in Emeka Egbuka. Go right in the slot for slot. Rookie contract versus expensive aging contract. Yeah, that's my justification of that pick. If they move on for Cooper Kupp, they need help at wide receiver in that spot. And Egbuka, easy, put him in there as a rookie, as a slot, pro-ready type player. 27, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and this is just what the Ravens do. It's like, oh, no one wants to draft the guy with all the first-round traits, the guy with top 10 pick traits. Okay, we'll take him. Mykel Williams is like as perfect of a Raven pick that could possibly exist at 27. They need to get a little bit younger on their pass rush. They go get a 6'5", 275 upside length trait guy that needs to get developed. And they're like, okay, you're going to be our next Owe or Ajabo, I think, still currently getting cooked up there a little bit. And now you're going to throw Mykel Williams, who I think, with that size, too, could give you a little bit of versatility where you can probably stand up on the edge and get his hand in the dirt. We have Detroit at pick 28, another team that needs pass rush help. So we're going to go with Ezeiruaku, the pass rusher out of Boston College. I watched Boston College. I remember it was against Florida State. This guy was unblockable. I was like, who the hell is this pass rusher on Boston College? Ended up finishing last year with 14 sacks, 26 pressures. His RAS, wait till, it's getting pretty hampered down here by his size grade of 6'2", 250. But once he runs a 40 at his pro day, based off of great in the explosion, based off of his elite testing and agility, He's definitely going to be a +9 RAS athlete at that pass rush with great production, can play the run, can rush the passer. I think he's going to be the value pass rusher in this draft. And the best compliment I can say to all these picks, prior to my Philadelphia Eagles picking, is that if I would love the Eagles to draft him, that's how you know it'd be a good pick. And Ezeiruaku is certainly in that conversation. I'd be laughing if he was there at pick 32. Pick number 29, we have the Washington Commanders. They're going to be inspired by the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to have them select Omarion Hampton. You want to talk about combine winners. Hampton was already head and shoulders the next best running back after Ashton Jeanty. I've had Omarion Hampton go in my last 2 mock drafts in the first round. Awesome player. And then he's like, I'm at the combine. I'm actually just going to be, now the agility, not the best. I'd love to hear him come up and be like, I was actually hurt. I ran too fast. But everything else, a 9.61 RAS on a 220-pound beast who has outstanding vision, outstanding contact balance, can catch the ball in the backfield, carried that North Carolina offense. I think if you look at the Commanders, it is a copycat league. What do the Commanders don't have that the Philadelphia Eagles do have? Amongst other things, they don't have a dominant run game. All due respect to Brian Robinson, he's just a guy. He's a solid starter, limited upside, has 1 year left on his rookie contract. You get in someone like Omarion Hampton, that is a franchise running back that can be transformative for Jane Daniels and that offense, not just for next year, but for the next 4 to 5 years. Buffalo Bills, pick number 30. I'm going to have them select Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle from Michigan. Bills are in a weird spot given the board. Could go pass rush and scout, but I don't love that. They could go Eamon Worry and fall in love with the combine. I don't know. I just kind of felt like out of all the players, like wide receiver, are you going to reach for any of these guys? Much I'd love to see the Canadian Ayo Manor make it. There's no one really there right now. So you kind of go BPA. Kenneth Grant, first round Tate. Wait till he tests. He's 6'3", 330, 335, maybe even closer to 340. At his pro day, he's expected to put up some big numbers. If we're in the discussion of RAS, I would be shocked if he's not a 9+ RAS player. As a nose tackle, 3 sacks, 23 pressures, can play the run, can give you a little bit of juice. I think a good compliment. Put him right next to Ed Oliver, who's a undersized interior pass rusher. I think they complement one another very, very nicely. Then you have Russo and Epineza. That puts together that front for Sean McDermott and that defense to maybe bail out the Bills every now and again, so it doesn't always have to be Josh Allen winning them games. Kansas City Chiefs at 31, and I'm going to have them select Aireontae Ersery, the tackle from Minnesota. Whoo! I did not see any of this. I saw a big mauler, and big maulers run and test like in the 7s, 6s, and 7s, not 9 3s. At 6'6", 331, I almost guarantee day one he is an upgrade over pretty much anybody on that offensive line that's at the tackle spot right now. You had to get and throw Joe Thuney out there, just try to solve it. I don't know. I assume Suamadia is like your long-term developmental play. I think Ersery is pro-ready. I think he's a badass mauler. And I think you put him at right or left tackle right away. I think he instantly, if you make this selection, and not too often you could say that at pick 31 on a team that's as good as Kansas City, he's your tackle. You figure out what side. The tackle spot starts with Ersery. You figure out with the guys rest on the roster who plays on the other side of him. But you have to watch that Super Bowl, and your only takeaway has to be for the Chiefs. You got to fix the offensive line. I think at 31, he would be the best available player. And then finishing up at 32, with my Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to select Jihaad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama. This is now done under the assumption that we lose Zach Bond to free agency, which would be incredibly frustrating. But depending on who you want to listen to, is Philly really in the Myles Garrett sweepstakes? Because if we are, that's a yin and yang right now for the Eagles fan base. It's like, yes, Myles Garrett. No, we can't. Zach Bond and everyone else is gone. There's just no way he can make it work. But if we do lose Zach Bond, Jihaad Campbell, which is breaking a trend for Howie Roseman. We do not value running backs until we get Saquon Barkley. We do not value linebackers until, so if we lose Zach Bond, you look at someone like Jihaad Campbell, he's Zach Bond. He was Zach Bond of college football last year. Zach Bond is and developed into being an off-ball linebacker. That was awesome. That also rushed the passer. We'd have him blitz from time to time again. That hybrid tweener type role. And if we lose Zach Bond, Jihaad Campbell is that guy. Last year, he had 600 snaps, off-ball linebacker, over 100 as a pass rusher. Elite speed grade, explosion grade is going to be similar. He's going to likely finish out the rest of it, but a 9.95 RAS will probably come down just a little bit, but he's going to be probably a 9.5 plus player, S-tier type athlete. And I think for the Philadelphia Eagles, who love, as of late, drafting from these blue chip schools, blue blood programs, Georgias, your Bamas, it makes a lot of sense for that to happen to the Philadelphia Eagles. And if Howie Roseman can't afford to pay Zach Bond, I still think he can buck his don't value linebacker tendency by finishing off the first round with Jihaad Campbell. So there you go, fellas. That is my post-combine mock draft. Would love to hear what you guys think about the picks in the comment section below. Do you like the pick I made for your team? Do you hate the pick that I made for your team? Where would you have gone different? Who are you most impressed with during this combine weekend? Let me know in the comment section below. If it is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. I will be dropping a full 7-round post-combine mock draft for the Eagles specifically over on my More C4 secondary channel, which you can find in the video description below. Go check that one out. They'll be dropping later on today. And until next time, it's your boy C4 saying peace out, love ya. Have a good one.